Good evening. This is Crap Grandma Says. I've been hearing a lot about the farmers who are losing their farms because the subsidies and the grants and the, let's just call it what it is, welfare payments paid by us taxpayers that they were awarded under Joe Biden are now not being paid because they voted for Donald Trump and he's now put a stop to them. Now they're all pissing and moaning and regretting their vote. This situation reminds me a lot of back when I was raising small children. So when my kids were younger, I'd go out and buy them new coats each year to wear when it was cold because as a parent, I loved my kids. And I really couldn't see a scenario under which I wanted children's services in my space. So it behooved me to make sure they had coats and made sure they wore them. I didn't want them in my space because my children didn't have proper outdoor clothing. And I also used to pay for us all to go to the movies every Wednesday afternoon when the kids were little. The kids loved going to the movies every Wednesday. It was the highlight of every single week. Well, one Wednesday, it was cold, and I needed the kids to get their coats on to go to the movies. One of them decided they didn't want to do that. Effectively, they voted not to wear their coat. So even though I really wanted to go to the movies too, because that was my interest in it, and they were voting against my interests, I let that election stand. And then I said, okay, then I'm pulling the movies and we're not going. And it also meant that they did not get the subsidies of popcorn, candy, and soda we usually got while we were there. And then I also pulled anything fun that they might have gotten under other circumstances at home as well. And of course, they threw a fit once they understood what the consequences of their vote was going to be. But I held firm, and I didn't care because they needed to learn that lesson. And that situation was a lot like what we see right now with the farmers. They voted for a POS, and now there's consequences for them. And they deserve to suffer those consequences. It bugs the absolute crap out of me that they're throwing a fit about this because they voted against me and my interest, against the interest of everyone not like them, who, by the way, they still sell their farm products to, and also against their own interests, it turns out, while they were planning on taking the money of the taxpayers, including those who don't believe like they do, to pay their farm bills. And I'm not saying it's not okay for folks to have different beliefs about life. I'm saying if you're smart enough, you as a business person, farmer people, recognize that you got to sell to everybody, and everybody has to come together to support you, regardless of whether their beliefs match up with yours. And the fact that you were getting subsidies and grants and all that other stuff is an acknowledgement of the fact that the people who think differently than you do understand that and still supported you, yet you stabbed them in the back. Just like my one child who wore his coat got stabbed in the back by the one that didn't over the movies. You bit the hand that was feeding you. And you're going to get cut even more. Because the monies that pay for SNAP benefits, when folks use those benefits to buy the things that you sell, help pay for things farmers need to run their farms. And they increase the farmers' profits, aka the bottom line, for farmers. During the time when all those benefits were being paid without question to the farmers, these were the same folks talking about using their Second Amendment rights against me and others and banding together and acting like a bunch of hooligans while we taxpayers whom you stood against because we were not like you were putting food in your stinking mouths. Now that the hen of not doing that anymore has come home to roost, you want to complain because the money I and others as taxpayers paid into you isn't going to be there anymore. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for that complaining. And before you get any sympathy from me and a lot of other people, you're going to have to do a whole lot more activism. Where's your firebrand statements against the folks taking away the monies that we, the taxpayers, so generously gave to you before you voted against us? I hear a whole lot of whining and crying from you when 5 minutes ago you were firebranding, talking about using your Second Amendment rights against folks you sell to, who you were okay with 5 minutes ago when they were customers. And before your farmer, everybody has to be just like me, stupidity came out. Where's your firebrand attitude against the folks taking your grants, subsidies, and the welfare we taxpayers gave to you away from you? If you want my sympathy, You're going to have to do a whole lot more firebrand activism, including on topics that might be different from the way that you think and believe, and stop being the a-holes you have been. You complain about getting screwed over by the system while you turn around and screw everybody who doesn't think like you. The very people who've been silently standing in the background paying for the grants and loans and subsidies that go to you. But you expect those same folks to defend you when the grants and loans and subsidies go away. Instead of banding together with your customers, even the ones different from you, you chose to lose your farms to giant corporations. There's really no help for that kind of stupid. Didn't you have a stinking clue that all kinds of folks buy the stuff you sell? This is a lesson in don't shoot yourself in the stinking foot when you're selling to everybody. Don't you have a clue that raw capitalism doesn't care about your values? Like I said above, I'm not feeling too kindly toward these folks at this point. And if they really want me to care, then perhaps they should get off their butts and start thinking more globally and stop being so against the very customers who don't necessarily think like them, who were buying their crap and paying for their grants and subsidies and loans. So there's that.